Continuing to read from Dallas Pimiento, Book 3, Bronco Dilator. Beginning with a piece called The Inexhaustible Bread Bag. By reducing the diagrams of the various arachnosleds, egg hatches, and vibratowers to tiny size, it was clear even to Todd Groner how these machines could have been derived from the intricate doodles of the King of Vales. And conversely, Groner enthused, by magnifying those doodles, we could have the basic designs for countless new products. Reg Shout-Pansy wanted to bark, duh, but he knew only too well of Groner's kinship with the executive Lord Bean Counter. Fortunately, old Lister was there to take the discussion in another direction. Or fine art, the older man added to Groner's statement. Or fine art, Groner repeated happily. He punched the air. Hot damn, what a concept! A sufficient supply of the doodles is available? Shout-Pansy asked Lister, while Groner grew somber, puzzling out how fine art might be obtained from mere magnified doodles. There are 2 or 3 on every page of the original manuscripts of the King of Vales books, Lister explained. How do you mean, fine art? Groner asked. Have you ever heard of Franz Klein? Lister asked. No. Groner did not exactly rue his scattershot and truncated education at this point, but the seeds were planted to blossom into the suspicious discontent of his middle passage. Lister studied the young man's face for a moment before dissembling. I'll show you some photographs of his work sometime, but right now we need to decide if we want to go the route of stealing the manuscripts or using some sort of publicity agent to pump up the desirability of the King of Vales' work to the point where his heirs will want to sell the manuscripts on the open market. Reg Shout-Pansy was not listening. He was eyeing a pen and the used envelope that lay near at hand. What if he were to... Reg, the experienced old man commanded his attention. I know what you're thinking, but forget it. The doodles of the king have an irreproducible spontaneity and genius. Paul Revere rides forever vigilant. Pick up that box and follow me, instructed Suds Master Colvin. The partially mechanized boy standing before the indicated box studied it closely before obeying Colvin. It contains documents and illustrations relevant to our people's struggle against the Peas, Colvin explained, although he didn't need to, for 2 reasons. The first was that, as a grade L underling, the boy deserved no explanation. The second was that the boy, whose name was Edir, was only looking for the best way to lift the box, as he had been trained to do. Colvin, shouldering his own burden, a case of Gadarene swill, led the way down the darkened hallway. Nearing the end, where the flashing warning light indicated the doorway to the isolation chamber, the Suds Master suddenly turned to Edir. You understand that you must never reveal what you are about to see, he hissed at the boy. I understand, the boy's voice box rendered his answer as a series of funky electronic beats. Colvin then inserted his right index finger into the peptotic reader linked to the isolation chamber's locking mechanism. The door swung noiselessly aside, revealing the blue illumination of the entrance to the chamber. Who is there? A resonant masculine voice demanded. It is I, Suds Master Colvin, delivering the items as directed. Colvin placed his box on the floor before the great easy chair from which the voice emanated. He jerked his head at the boy, indicating him to do the same. And who is this? The voice, softened by curiosity, asked. A grade L servitor, partially flesh, Colvin answered. You are dismissed, Suds Master. Leave the boy here, the voice commanded. Yes, great one. Colvin exited and resealed the door, leaving Edir inside. The next time the door to the isolation chamber was opened was over 10 years later. Promises of resolution aside, it remained for the Peas to master the secret techniques that would allow their emissaries to respond in kind to those few parts of the Bean's whole operation they were to observe. The Greys that gaze. Glittering ideas for the opening of this piece are suspended just above my eyes like antique ornaments on a Christmas tree, but dimly remembered from one's 3rd or 4th year. Was Jimmy Smith better than Groove Holmes? The odd mouth feel of seedless watermelon, similar to that of flesh. It makes me wonder if this variety of melon is actually some kind of green, legless hog. My latest Mick Jagger dream might be a good way to begin, but then it occurs to me that I have already begun. A knock at the door of the tiny one-roomed office I occupy at the top of the southern tower, the loneliest tower in the complex, distracts me from my struggles with form and technique. "Message for you, sir." The mail handler, dressed in the colorful costume of his medieval forebears, handed me the wax-sealed envelope. "Here, boy," I bid the man stay a moment before rushing back to his other duties. "You've known me for some time now. We've worked together in this complex, albeit in different capacities, as fellow laborers. Why do you yet address me as sir? Seems a bit formal for such a close comradeship." The fellow hesitated a moment, perhaps wondering if the truth were too precious a treasure to part with. "It was meant ironically," he at last confessed. "Oh!" I acknowledged his answer and closed the door upon him. "Now to attend to this message," I said aloud to myself in the accustomed manner that has helped me to conceptually compartmentalize my mental functions into various identities. I split the still-warm seal with a thumbnail and withdrew the stiff piece of beige cardstock. "Mick Jagger is here with a seedless watermelon. Would you please come down?" wrote the message. It was signed by my wife. My bow tie showed the telltale signs of having been hastily donned as I entered the reception hall. "Not the bow tie," my wife mouthed in horror. "Ah, Mick," I said grandly, "I suppose you've come to debate who was better, Jimmy Smith or Groove Holmes." "Oh, Jimmy Smith, definitely," replied the old man, revealing a discerning taste. Expertly separated. "Where do you think it's drawing its power from?" Pahabras asked Dr. Fungroyd. "Difficult to say, General. Perhaps that wall socket." Fungroyd had been confined to a mobile immersion tank since his accident. He answered Pahabras through the oil drum speaker mounted above the tank. "Harrelson," Pahabras ordered one of the lieutenants surrounding him, "take a couple of men to that wall socket to which the breacher is attached. Use whatever you've got to destroy that connection." "Yes, sir." The young lieutenant, played by the eternally snarling Rafe Pinworm, saluted and left. "He plays a creep in everything he's in," my mother expressed her disgust. "My mother thinks Keith Richards is a creep. I don't know how that affects your judgment of her assessment of Pinworm. My mother is of the opinion that Tyrone Power was a good-looking man, and that William Powell was funny. Maybe that will help you make up your mind. I can't help you. I didn't see the movie in question. I was busy in my room making lists of things to buy with my lottery winnings." Two stout guerrillas linked to the main creature by wireless communication guarded the power source. Lieutenant Harrelson and his two bravos advanced warily, hoping to get their weapons within range before they were noticed. "What are you going to do with your share of the lottery winnings?" one of the guerrillas asked the other. "I've always wanted to move to Europe," the other replied, after some thought. Before his companion could denigrate this plan, pointing out that no amount of money would allow an immense gorilla-like alien to live in peace and comfort in Europe and take advantage of all of Europe's cultural offerings, Harrelson's team began blasting at the socket mounted on the wall. "Stop! Stop!" cried the large, bug-shaped mechanoid. "I'm just trying to find out where to redeem this lottery ticket." Its cries were in vain, however, as none of the surrounding soldiers understood its language, a sad manifestation of the American educational system's paltry state. My list of wants petered out after number 15. To have the size and shape of my ears surgically altered. Dumb idea, I thought. The last chance to recycle batteries. It was Christmas Eve, 1964, when Wayne Shorter recorded his classic album, Speak No Evil. 50 years later, World War I reenactors in northern France sullied the purity of their performance by playing the album through their brain unifier chips as they read it themselves for the famous truce their great-great-great-grandfathers had so annoyed their officers with. "Why isn't Tony Williams on this album?" Phil Loon asked his brothers-in-arms. It is rumored that he was busy studying the Beatles' records. As you know, only a few years later he would come out with the first fusion record. Gary Pershing unwrapped a banana-flavored Twinkie as he spoke. "That's debatable," a young man known only as Todd threw in angrily. "The debate is what makes it so fun," Gary smiled. His mouth was full of corruption. "What are you men doing?" An officer, whose regular job was stocks analyst, peered over the top of the trench in which the men stood. "You're supposed to be playing football with the Germans." "Sorry, Larry," someone apologized. "It's Captain Willis," the stocks analyst barked. "Get a move on. The artificial snow won't last much longer." The men picked up their gear and began climbing the ladders. "We call it soccer in Canada," Todd told the captain. "I'll bear that in mind," the officer replied, just as yellow paintball splattered his uniform. Of course, he wasn't injured, but he lost his balance under the impact and fell into the trench where he broke his neck. Todd and the others already over the top saw the German reenactors advancing on them. They, too, were shot with paintballs. "We're listening to the Scorpions," one German informed the prisoners as he and his fellows herded them into the corral. "You are dead! You are dead!" the Germans complained to the soldiers and insisted on walking about after being shot. "That's cadaverous," Gary said, smiling. He managed to get his picture taken with a real horse before he went home. Biscuits as big as a lumberjack's fist. Standing upright for the first time, the giant pig seemed less like a grossly magnified farmyard habitué than a grand money-making opportunity. "Reminds one of Animal Farm, eh?" Shepard, the cereal box model, commented to Radal, champion of the circuit. "I have never read the novel," Radal answered robotically. He picked up a long stick of bamboo and approached the giant pig. "Now, what are you going to do, Radal?" Old Clem saw Radal coming towards him and the pig and asked. "See how long we can keep him standing." Radal held the bamboo like a flashlight pointed at the stars. "That's not how you do it," Clem cried out, although calmly, very calmly. He didn't want to spook the pig, used though it was to the sound of gunfire. "You do it with love." "Love takes time," Radal countered bitterly. "I want to be a millionaire before it's too late." "Boys," Mama called from the back porch of the mobile house, "lunch is ready." She had on the red and white check dress and white apron that Shepard loved to see her in. Her hair was up in a bun, the color of an imperfectly ripened tomato. As Shepard and the others stomped up the muddy hill to their lunch, some willingly, others reluctantly, he asked himself what Radal had meant by, "before it's too late." "We have a guest," Mama announced as the men took note of the bearded stranger sitting at the head of the table where Moonwig used to sit. "This is Doc Brigger." "From the Ministry of Transients," the stranger added. As he spoke, it was evident to everyone that the man already had a taste of the creamed corn. "What do you want with us?" Radal, still clutching the bamboo pole, demanded. "Well, I was going to order you to move on, but now that I've seen your pig, something else has occurred to me." Brigger put goosebumps on the men's arms with his words. "That pig needs shoes." "Leave it till tomorrow to unpack my case." Much the best way to travel if one is traveling to some destination both remote and conventionally out of bounds to the financially restricted postal workers, such as the Strap-Blocking Islands or the Christmas Gorge, is by aluminum balloon stick. It was by means of this innovative yet simple contraption that I voyaged to Aquardia, the tiny swamp-locked kingdom that is just as good as the Strap-Blocking Islands or the Christmas Gorge, but far less expensive than either. I remember telling a co-worker that when I returned from my month-long retreat, I would still have enough money to go for broke in the big multi-planet lottery, so thrifty would be the whole affair. Of course, I was not so foolish as actually to blow the money I had saved on lottery tickets, but I do not make a point of insisting on truth when a witty statement is available. This sentiment has led to much confusion over the years. People thinking that I have actually murdered my wife, advocated the violent overthrow of our divinely mandated government, or honestly intended to have my nipples surgically removed. But I think the satisfaction I feel in speaking so cleverly is worth all the interrogation by police, federal agents, and mental health workers. "How was your trip?" a plump man in a new straw hat asked me as I sat down with him in the lobby of the Petrol King Hotel, the largest structure in all of Aquardia, outside the royal compound itself. "Oh, fine, fine," I answered, refusing the man's offer of a share of his bottle of the local rum. I was sweating, a rarity for me, even in that quasi-tropical climate. Nervously, I scanned the surroundings. "Relax, my friend," the man whom I shall here call Mr. Obduro advised me with a chuckle. "There is a reason I conduct business here. It is absolutely safe." "Okay," I whispered. I picked the battered old grocery bag off the floor and placed it on the table. It had sat on my lap all the way on the aluminum balloon stick. Mr. Obduro took a look inside. "Yes," he acknowledged. "It is the head of my sister's rapist." He then passed me the small box containing my payment. Vegetable alignment. Mel put on his sloth armor. Bethany watched from the secret pantry her cousin's husband had installed the previous summer at a greatly discounted rate. Afterwards she consulted the tiny parrot that lived downstairs. The bird was drunk. One could always tell because he habitually put on a hat that was a miniature replica of Daddy's, but he still made sense. "Well, Bethany," he said in that Mickey Mouse voice of his, "Mel must have a reason for putting on that suit. Unless he's totally insane, and I mean really insane, not just some ha-ha, he's insane thing. Bethany, you were always a worrywart. I've known you since you were a little girl." "No, you haven't," Bethany interjected. "I just met you last year." "I must be thinking about some other little girl." The bird's words were slurred, but contained no emotional content that usual. But contained no more emotional content than usual. That's the primary disadvantage of a bird's vocal apparatus. Everything is rendered in a monotone. He slid down the pole on which his perch was mounted and lay back on the floor, apparently asleep. The following day, Mel's wife Karen opened a pneumatic tube capsule addressed to her, and inside found photographs of Mel parading through the illiterate sector of town in the sloth armor. "What is this?" she asked Mel, handing him the photos. "I don't know." Mel placed his stein on the table and shuffled through the pictures. "Somebody trying to threaten me? Blackmail me? It doesn't make sense." "Does this person think I don't know about you in that suit?" Karen asked. Her hands were on her hips in outrage. "I don't know, honey. I can't think who would take pictures of me and send them to you." Listening through the specially filtered hose that she had run up through the insulation, Bethany bit her hand in frustration. Big, hot tears fell from her eyes. What could she do now? Should she ask the bird? He was probably hungover, but what other option did she have? Contemporaries of Buttoned Pumpkin. Standardized packaging really satisfies something in me aesthetically, the fellow with the word corporate printed by hand on his pale blue t-shirt told Laudner. "Try to keep your mind on the game," Laudner replied. He and corporate sat on either side of the long rectangular table. He and corporate sat on either side of the long rectangular board on which they were passing the time until Frisco returned, playing the game of beans and peas. Corporate made a quick response to Laudner's move and said, "I must confess I'm not really interested in playing this game." "You must not be. You're playing so badly." Laudner triumphantly moved his dodgem into the zone of referral. "What do you expect? I've never played before." Corporate glanced at the clock over the bar. "What?" Laudner wrinkled his brow. "I thought this was the game for you Board of Trade guys." The man in the pale blue t-shirt smirked. "I'm not exactly Board of Trade." Laudner was about to press for details when a jangling of keys outside the door was heard. The door opened, and in stepped Frisco, with several plastic grocery bags hanging from one hand. "Give me a hand, will you?" he asked. Laudner jumped up and took the bags from him. He put them on the bar. Meanwhile, Joseph Maturdley, the corporate man, studied the forsaken game board. He swept the pieces into the game box. "Hey, corporate," Frisco hailed the man. "Nice shirt. You do that yourself?" "Yeah." Maturdley stood up. The kinetic device, taped to his solar plexus, could clearly be seen as the material of the shirt was stretched. "I've got bad news," Frisco told Laudner as he removed a bottle of vodka from one of the bags. "We've got to change rooms." "But why?" Laudner asked. Maturdley made a futile dash for the door, flashing the dome. Secured to the underside of the bottle screw top by a powerful acrylic-based gum paste was the station dweller's main power source. This was a reactive coil of tuftium that used the carbon dioxide exhaled by the biological organisms inside the bottle, either dwelling on the floating station or living in the deep sea of protonic milk on which the station floated, to produce light and heat. "What a miracle of science it is," Johnny Aldiot marveled one day in July, when periodic atmospheric conditions unique to the life inside the bottle rendered the surrounding mountains of textile moss but a mustard-colored blur through the glass. "A miracle by definition cannot exist," responded thin-whiskered Dangler McCool. He rubbed his thumbs and forefingers together brutally, making a grinding sound as he looked over the side of the station into the milk. In the semi-opacity of the milk surface, he could see a few of the bizarre creatures that teemed in unknown numbers in the depths. "You're such a sourpuss," Aldiot laughed, slapping McCool on the shoulder playfully. McCool whipped around. "I told you not to touch me. I told you before. Trouble, amigos?" The voice of Dr. Carmack's assistant, Romulio, intercut the scene. As he stepped forward, the two parted. Aldiot asked Romulio if he did not think the reactive coil a miracle of science. "A miracle?" Romulio repeated dubiously. "Utonomics manufactures many fine products, but I don't think miracles number among them." "I've told him not to touch me." McCool jabbed his finger at Aldiot. "I've told him 100 times." Is that right? Ramil asked, but even a child of 3 or 4 could sense the lack of concern in his words. Dr. Carmack predicts a steam storm is building up. You two had better come inside. Oh, he's predicted one, has he? Aldite sneered, though he followed Remulio back into the safety of the station's interior readily enough. Yes, Johnny, with the help of his machinery. A miracle, Aldite shook his head. They're all miracles. We'll be stopping there and continuing next week. Thank you.